Hi. Okay, I'm going to caveat, I'm shit with clickers, and considering everyone's having problems with clickers, we're in deep shit today. Sorry, shit, two shits in one. Hi, my name's Pip. Yeah, I'm the founder of The Dots. Quick question, who in here has actually heard of The Dots? Oh my God, okay. It's a bit mad when you start a business from a houseboat in London and then you go to another country and people know who you are. But yeah, I guess today I'm going to be talking about our community, and yeah, people describe us LinkedIn for the creative industries, and actually Forbes recently called us the next LinkedIn, which I'm sort of really excited about. But you know, we've nearly got 500,000 members now, and we're starting to see this amazing community telling us things about what the future of creativity is about to become. And that's what my talk is today. But firstly, I actually wanted to say a personal thank you to Ray, because your talk was epic. And I think more men have to be on stage talking about diversity, so legend, thank you. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me, what The Dots is, and then I'm going to talk about why I'm actually really excited about the future and how everyone in this room can harness their creativity to basically thrive in the age that we're currently in, the age of automation. So couple of fun facts, I guess. My dad was a creative. He worked in the music industry. He always thought I was going to go into being a creative. So my way of being a rebel is I went and did maths and economics at university. But from there, I then joined the government in the UK. So I joined the Fast Stream Civil Service. I went into government with aspirations to change the world. I realized that would be really hard within government, and I'm way too impatient. So I left the government and worked for MTV, primarily MTV, but mainly Viacom, in various roles around the world. I started my first creative business, tech business in Australia, which I sold, exited, and then started The Dots in London. I am very dyslexic, and the reason I'm mentioning that today is sometimes I stumble on words, and so apologies, I definitely talk in context. Quick question, who in the room here is dyslexic? Amazing. Okay, here's a fun fact. 35% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic, and 40% of self-made millionaires, so congratulations, it's a superpower. So I guess my story really began when I was working at MTV. While I was at MTV, I just noticed there was this really different pattern of work emerging, and I was surrounded by brilliant friends starting to kind of adopt more fluid, creative careers. And I was just constantly frustrated with LinkedIn as a way for us to promote ourselves, to connect with other people, to collaborate, to network, and to find opportunities. And what the patterns I started noticing is like that traditional white-collar, very corporate community, they had a very CV-based career. It was a very linear career. But I was kind of surrounded by people who were having much more fluidity in their careers. They were adopting freelance careers, but portfolio careers as well. So people were working 3 days somewhere and doing side hustles for 2 days a week. And even when people were in roles, we were working on a much more project-by-project basis. And that kind of linear CV-based way of promoting ourselves just wasn't working. The other thing I noticed is I was surrounded by amazing creative people coming up with ideas and building teams around them to execute on those ideas. And you know, LinkedIn was very much built around that more kind of process accounting corporate roles, and I wanted to invent a different way. But I think on a much deeper level, what I realized is people go into the creative industries with a different value set than that kind of traditional white-collar community. So there were these massive posters in London recently, like promoting LinkedIn. It said, get paid as much as you can. And the thing is, pay is really important. I mean, but they've shown there's a very little difference in happiness from a certain pay bracket to, say, earning $1 million a year. And I think people join the creative industries for different reasons, a different way of life. They want their companies to feel like family. They want to feel purpose in the work they do. And that's not just a creative industries trait. That's very much a millennial trait of people coming through. So for those of you that don't know the dots, I guess the massive difference between how we work and how LinkedIn work is LinkedIn is based around promoting yourself via a CV. The way the dots works is people post projects on the dots and then tag the full team around that project. So a campaign can go up and say, this is the art director, this is the copywriter, this is the producer, this is the account manager. It can be an app, and it would be, this is the UI designer, UX designer, front-end engineer, back-end engineer. And it's a recognition that creativity doesn't happen in isolation. You know, you can have an amazing creative, but you need to be supported by a brilliant team to make that idea come to life. And the other reason I'm so passionate about giving everyone credit for the work they do is a lot of awards, which are amazing to get recognition, people that are freelancing aren't getting credit at awards. People who are mid-levels, juniors, are definitely not get credit. So we're trying to solve that if you worked on something, you will get credit for the work that you do. And we work across all of the creative industries. Because really, we're seeing a massive breakdown in those traditional industry clusters. You know, we see in our data people moving between tech, film, TV, advertising, architecture in a much more fluid way than they ever have before. And those clusters are forming around ideas as opposed to, I'm in advertising, for example. And off the back of the dots, if people are going to invest time in us, we now work with over 10,000 brands that use us to find talent. But the interesting thing that has happened, tech, film, TV, advertising, architecture in a much more fluid way than they ever have before. And those clusters are forming around ideas as opposed to, I'm in advertising, for example. And off the back of the dots, if people are going to invest time in us, we now work with over 10,000 brands that use us to find talent. But the interesting thing that has happened is originally they were using us to find individuals. So they'd search for a project and they'd find the copywriter behind the project. But what's been happening over the last year is brands have been using us to hoover up whole teams to work on projects and going straight from the brand to the collective and cutting out the middle. So, but the reason I loved Ray's talk so much, at the heart of all of the dots is that recognition that great creativity comes from diversity. And I loved Chris's slide, the Steve Jobs quote about, you know, creativity is about connecting the dots. Do you see where that came from? And those dots are from all our different experiences and our different backgrounds and our different nationalities. And so at the heart of the dots, and I've always felt LinkedIn celebrates being homogenous, the dots is the absolute antithesis to that. It's about celebrating our difference. And so, by the way, I love men, but the dots is currently 68% female membership. We are over 31% BAME, which is Black, Asian, minority ethnic, 16% LGBT, but we also do a lot of work on promoting disabled talent, neurodiverse talent, so that's dyslexia, autism, dyspraxia, ADHD. We remove the ability for companies to be able to search for talent by universities. You should be judged on the work you create, not the school you went to. And also, when companies search the dots for talent, they do it in what we call bias blocking mode. So it removes the profile image of that candidate, the name, their university. So they judge people on what they are creating. And the reason I'm so passionate about the space and the reason this whole talk, what the topic of this talk is the robots are coming. Oh God, there was a very nervous laugh just then. I'm an optimist. It's happy, don't worry. But there are three things machines don't do very well. They don't have empathy, they don't have common sense, and they can't mimic that human capability to be creative. And so the people in this room, you are the safest community that exists, and I guess that is the reason that I told you I was shit at clickers. Where do I go? Clicker? I'll do a dance. Oh, shit. No? Oh, there we go. And I guess that's the reason that Forbes called us the next LinkedIn. Oh, how do I go back? Sorry. There we go. I'm shit at clickers at the best of times, but now it's going to get even worse. Oh. Here we go. Here we go. I might have to have a new clicker. Is this going back or forward? Oh, no. It's going the wrong way. Sorry, guys. Everyone talk around themselves. Can you run this presentation back? Amazing. Do you know what? I've just given you my whole presentation in about 5 minutes. I might not actually have to talk anymore. Right, there we go. This is the hilarious thing. I'm dyslexic, so I don't know if I'm pressing right or left. Wait a sec, which way? No, it's the other way. Yeah? Don't touch it. I'm not allowed to touch it. There we go. You're going to go back. Sorry. It's hilarious. So the problem with being dyslexic, I don't know left and right, so I think I was just clicking the whole wrong way, which is brilliant. No, back a bit more. Back, 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 back. Oh, that was my houseboat, by the way, just in case you spotted that bit. Back, back, back. Oh my God, I clicked through the whole bloody presentation. That is absolutely awesome. Right, where are we? Back, back, back. Yay! No, the dicks. Yeah, we need the dicks. Right. Speed presenting. So why am I excited about the future? I guess because, as I said, creativity is one of the last things we are going to be able to automate. And so the potential of being a creative is absolutely massive. And the kind of examples of careers I'm about to show you are the things that we see emerging on the dots, where we see companies doing searches and those searches accelerating. And so they're looking for this type of talent. And so these are the kind of roles that everyone in this room who's a creative can get excited about. So something we're starting to see is there's so much information out there now. We've got like information technology overload. So everyone is now looking for more kind of curators, people who can synthesize a really complex world into things that we can understand. Now, this is one of my favorite artists. Her name's Mona. She's the digital data artist for The Guardian. And I think she summarized what's going on in the world in a brilliant way. So welcome to the state of tech at the moment. So this represents how many men are in the leading tech companies. So you're looking at around 80% of all tech companies at the moment are male. I actually showed this to a fellow male startup founder recently, and he said, "Why would I want my dick to be smaller?" Which kind of defeated the point. But the other thing we're starting to see are amazing people starting to put creativity first into tech solutions. So this is gorgeous work done by the agency Us2, and it's called Mood Notes. And this is a beautiful app where they found that when you have depression or when you're suffering from mood swings, if you journal and keep a record of what's happening on a day-to-day basis, this helps you overcome that kind of anxiety. We're starting to see the robots, but in a really lovely way. This is amazing work where it's designing body parts for people who have amputees. We're starting to see a lot more rewilding creative projects hitting the platform. And actually, it was really exciting to see that space, you know, at the back of here, this auditorium, you know how it's a massive derelict site? That apparently used to be a car park, but they're turning it into a park. And so we're seeing a lot more roles for creatives to reimagine cities that are no longer high-rise jungles, but are rewilded, made to make humans happy again, not just to work and get paid. We're seeing a huge rise in interior habitat designers, so making interiors of spaces much more places that we want to be. This is a gorgeous example of work that was done in a children's hospital, which can be really confronting place for someone to go if you're little, but making it into an experience which makes them happier and doesn't scar them later on in life. And we're getting a lot of experience design as well. The rise of the events, the rise of those shared experiences. This was a brilliant project in London, which was to celebrate the 100th year of the suffragettes. And so they basically got everyone to come in either purple, white, or green, and then march down the streets to show the suffragette flag, which I just think is incredible. And also the rise of, and once again, I'm so not going to click it another time, otherwise I'll finish the presentation. There we go. And then you've got the rise of, obviously, virtual habitat designers. But people starting to think about the human application of AR and VR and how immersive experience can actually improve our lives. There's restaurants now, while you're waiting for your food, there will be a kind of a virtual experience that happens on your dining plate while you're working for the food and putting humans first. And what we're also starting to see is tech companies starting to put creatives, but also diverse talent into their businesses to help them develop machine learning and AR that's fit, machine learning that's fit for human consumption. Now, this is an amazing man called Solomon. He was hired on the dots by a huge tech company. I won't shame or name the tech company, but to work on disabled machine learning work. Now, Solomon is one of the most genius creatives I know, and it was so amazing he's now working in that company. What scared me about that is for 2 years, that tech business had been developing machine learning for disabled people with no one disabled consulting on that project, and that's what we've got to change. And hey, one day we might also all be space tour guides as well. But what we are seeing more of, which is the biggest trend, is it going to click again? No. Yes, it did. Can we go back one, please? What we are seeing is the monumental rise of freelancing. Quick question, who in here is a freelancer? Okay, amazing. But it's not just freelancing, I think, and everyone thinks that freelancing is binary, it's black and white. We're seeing a lot more fluidity than just being a freelancer or not being a freelancer. We're seeing a huge rise in portfolio careers, especially among the under 25s. So this is someone that might work 3 days in one business, but spends 2 days on their side hustle, freelancing. And actually, when you talk about diversity and background coming into a business, if you come from an underprivileged background, sometimes going pure freelance is a real risk. So we're seeing that kids that haven't been to university are still taking part-time jobs, but then doing 2 days freelancing. We're seeing mothers go into freelancing, but after a certain period, coming back into the workforce. But whatever we're seeing a huge amount of fluidity. I think what I find most exciting, though, in the data that we're seeing on the dots is the rise of the collectives. And it's funny, I have this discussion a lot with agency owners, and Sir John Hegarty, who started BBH, is my chairman and one of my shareholders. And we talk about the traditional advertising model, and John once said to me, he goes, it always fluctuates like that. It goes more client size, and then everyone comes back to the agency again. But the really interesting thing we're seeing are very organized collectives. This isn't just freelancers who are sort of doing it on the side. These are kind of units that are set up like agencies, but in a much more agile way. So an example of that is, this is a company called Made by Blah. They're from ex-BBH, and they have a whole roster of freelancers they work with, and they'll bring people in for different briefs. And it's a very organized collective. There's another collective called On Road in London, who I absolutely love, which was started by ex-AKQAers. Now, they're 3 people. It's a creative, a business person, and a strategist. But they have a collective of over 200 people that they pull in for work. So Nike is now siphoning a lot of the work that they were formerly giving to AKQA directly to On Road. And why are they doing that? One, because On Road is highly organized. Secondly, because their collective of 200 people, they're all 16 to 25-year-olds. They've never had the privileges that a lot of the rest of the industries had. They are social media natives. Give them a camera, and they're out there making content that resonates with the community that Nike is trying to address. And On Road is allowed to be really agile. And so the collectives are sort of the new agencies of the future, because they are, in many ways, agencies. They're just a lot more agile in how they work. And we're also seeing the rise of the entrepreneur, like myself. This is Horace, my houseboat. I started the dots on Horace. We got to about 6 people on this boat before it became a proper health and safety issue. But, you know, technology is enabling people with creative ideas to start businesses in a way that has never been possible before. It's giving accessibility to everyone, and that's what makes me excited about the future. Ooh. There we go. So the robots are coming. Has anyone been on the BBC website where you can put in your job title and it tells you how quickly you're going to be automated? No? Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, you're one of the safest cohorts in the whole world. We are the class that is least likely to be automated at present. The reason being is we still have to come up with a creative idea for the machine to work on. So it was really interesting listening to Neil at the beginning of the day, because he used that example of that painting that got sold at Christie's for nearly $500,000 that was a machine painting. And Neil said that's not creative. And I sort of get where he's coming from, but what I think about that is actually the fact Neil mentioned it in a presentation, and the fact I mentioned it in a presentation, and the fact it's given Christie's a huge amount of publicity, is that it is actually an effective creative idea. The reality is it's not, it is creative because a human still had to come up with that idea. A human still had to program the computer to do that painting. It is absolutely creative. It's just someone used a machine to augment their creativity. Now, why are humans so different than a machine? Well, the reason is we are actually the most sophisticated machines that exist. We take in millions of inputs every day, and we synthesize that into creative ideas and intuition. And we do that through our whole lives. And machines can't do that. They don't have memory. They can't synthesize all those experiences and all that thing that you saw 20 years ago that then influences your idea now. Now, I'm not saying one day they won't. People are working on quantum robotics, which essentially would do that. But it's going to be a very, very, very long time. We're still going to be the people that have to come up with the idea to then get the machines to work on that idea. So to close off this presentation, what I wanted to give you were kind of the core things you should focus on to thrive in this age of automation and also be excited about it. So I think most importantly, the fact you're all creative is the most fundamentally important thing for our future as humans. And I'm a huge fan of, has anyone heard of Ken Robinson? Yeah? So Ken Robinson said creativity is as important as literacy. And it's so important because being creative is what makes us different from the machines. And we've got to put this back at the heart of education. So the huge challenge, and I mentor a lot of secondary schools in the UK, a massive challenge that's still happening in schools is they're teaching kids the answers, but they're not teaching them how to ask the questions. And this has got to be something we change. We have Alexa for the answers. As a side note, I had a fight with Alexa the other day. Does anyone have Alexa in their house? No? Okay, anyway. So the other thing is, I'm not sure about anywhere else in the world, but in the UK, they're obsessing about something called STEAM and STEAM education. So this is science, technology, engineering, and maths. And they've put that at the heart of education in the UK. But this is crazy because in the end, if you're coding by rule, if you're engineering by rule, we're going to be able to automate that. What we need are people either collaborating with technologists or being tech-savvy and creative-savvy, that they're actually building solutions for the world. And so I'm a massive advocate in putting the art back in STEAM, or STEM, so STEAM. And the reason I know this is important is actually, interestingly, while the sort of advertising industry is losing sight of how important creativity is, the tech industry is doing the absolute opposite. So these are two of my mentors. They're partners at a VC fund called Atomico, which is one of the biggest VC funds in Europe. It was started by Nicholas Zenstrom, who founded Skype. Now, what's really interesting about Atomico is when they hire engineers for their business, or for the portfolio companies they work with, the first core criteria they're looking for as a skill is creative thinking. Because again, they don't want engineers to code by rule. And this is why the tech industry is now hoovering up so many incredible creatives. You know, we collaborate with Google Creative Labs, for example, and all of the team at Google Creative Labs have worked at the best agencies. They're from Widens, they're from Pentagram. They're literally hoovering up that talent because they understand the value of creativity. I was in the Valley recently, in Silicon Valley, and they've actually started schools for tech entrepreneurs to teach them how to be more intuitive, because they've realized that what's happening in the Valley is people are just creating tech for tech's sake. They're not trying to come up with brilliant creative ideas and creative solutions. So interestingly, the tech industry is ahead of where we are. And I think that is so important to realize. You know, you suddenly got someone like Caroline Payne, who's one of my favorite female ECDs in the UK, now working for Headspace. So if the advertising industry is to survive, they've got to start putting the creativity back at the heart of what we do. The other thing that we have to start doing is embracing our intuition. And I love this quote by Einstein. So, by the way, I also love Einstein because he was dyslexic. But the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Intuition, creativity, these are human traits that set us apart, but we have tried to become like robots. Why are we trying to become like things that are actually going to be better at that than we are? Let's embrace what we are good at. And with that comes embracing our difference and embracing diversity. And diversity is multi-layered. It's not just gender. It's not just ethnicity. It's not just nationality. It's loads of other things like disabilities, neurodiversity, and probably the hardest bastion at the moment, which is socioeconomic diversity. If we're going to try and build really innovative products and ideas for everyone, if we're all went to similar universities and we're leaving behind everyone else, then we're not going to really innovate, and we're not going to resonate with the people that we're trying to resonate with. And this, I think, is a perfect example. Does anyone know who this is? No? So this is, have you heard of an agency called AKQA? Yeah. So this is the amazing James Hilton, who is one of the founders of AKQA. Now, James has been one of my mentors for years now, and I'd go out for coffee with James, and at the end of the coffee, I'd give him a hug, because actually, if you're dyslexic, you tend to be really tactile. And by about the 7th coffee, James said to me, "Can you please not hug me anymore?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, he's like my icon, and he hates me touching him." But what he then said struck me. He said, "Pip, I'm autistic." And on average, dyslexics love hugging on average, and there's always outliers. People who have autism prefer not to be hugged. Now, after that, James has started talking publicly about his autism. And what I've come to realize is James built one of the most groundbreaking agencies because of his autism, not despite of his autism. The fact his brain is wired in a different way helped him innovate a model. And it's time we stop again trying to be homogenous, which is what I feel LinkedIn tries us to get us to be. It's time that we celebrate all the amazing things that were on your slide, all those multi-layers, the countries we've lived in, the differences in the music, the differences in the experiences that we have. Let's all start embracing our difference, because that's what's going to make us different from the machines. And above all, we need to start being more human. This is an amazing woman called Obi Felton. She's one of the senior leaders at Google Moonshot. So Moonshot is this crazy campus in Silicon Valley which develop these kind of Google ideas of the future. So they'll look at driverless cars. And now, Obi, when she started at Google Moonshot, she said she was the first human they hired. And what she meant by that is she was the first person that went into Moonshot that didn't have a PhD. And why was that so important for Moonshot? The reason being is when she was going around evaluating all the ideas, the first question she asked is, what is the human application of these ideas? And a lot of times, they didn't know. And what's happening is, these hugely wealthy tech companies are just creating tech for tech's sake. They've forgotten that technology is meant to make our world a better place, make us happier, and improve our lives. And so what I get excited about is the place for creatives is about embracing our creativity, embracing our humanity, and starting to influence the technology that we're building, so we're actually starting to solve real-world problems. Other things to think about. To be honest, we have really no idea what's going to happen. But we are going to have to change how we do things. It's not now just about going to university and you come out with a degree and you get that job and you just keep doing what you do, the same thing over and over for the next 30 years, you retire, you're done. Our lives are now going to be about continuous learning. But that should be really exciting because we're all so curious. Now, I'm really dyslexic, so I find it really hard to physically read books. But I have an Audible account, and I devour about a book a day. Not a day. I'd be really good if I did that. I devour about a book a week listening to Audible, and I've just kind of embedded it into my life. And I think for me, it's not just about reading about the topics that are directly related to my business. It's about diversity in reading, and not just reading what other people are reading. I actually have a speaker. I cycle to work every day, and I have a speaker on the front of my bike, which is hilarious when you're reading feminist books, because, anyway. So yeah, it's about continuous learning, but getting into the process, which is enjoyable, and making that enjoyable. The other thing is people have got to stop thinking in terms of job titles. Job titles are completely meaningless this day. We see it all the time on the dots. I get a lot of questions from journalists, for example, saying, oh, there's just no journalism jobs anymore. But actually, if you boil down what a journalist does, they're a storyteller, they're a copywriter. Those core skills that they have, those are so transferable into so many other roles. And so it's about starting to really understand what are your core skills, not the job title, because there is a chance that your job could be automated, that title. But if you boil it down to those core skills of creativity, of storytelling, of copywriting, you'll suddenly have this plethora of opportunities. If you don't know what your core skills are, just go onto the dots, write in the job title, and it will show you the core skills that you have. So there we go. But I think the most important thing as we go along this journey is we are the lucky ones. We are the ones that are least likely to be automated. However, there are a lot of people we might leave behind, or we are leaving behind. Now, I've been, just like you've been shocked by what's going on in the US, I've been devastated by what's been going on in the UK with Brexit. So 2 weeks ago, I marched alongside 700,000 other Brits who are devastated that we're leaving Europe. And I don't think it is the right decision, but I understand why people in the UK have made that decision. What's been happening in the UK is London has thrived. But outside London, people's median wage have just stagnated. Their lives are not getting any better and potentially getting worse. And the easiest thing for people to do, and they always look for the simplest solution, is to blame immigration. But actually, the UK is at its lowest levels of unemployment since the 60s. We're desperate for talent. We're desperate. And immigration isn't what's going on. What's going on is it's a protest vote against the stagnation of people's lives. And the same's happening in the US. And so I think it is our responsibility as creatives to not only thrive, but also to help the people we're leaving behind and use our creativity for good. There are so many problems in this world right now that creative minds can help solve. And for me, it's about being the change and helping change this world, which we all can at a micro and a mass level. This is an amazing woman who I met in the Valley. She used to be Barack Obama's entrepreneurship advisor. She's also chairman of Kiva, which is this amazing funding platform where you can fund people's business ideas throughout the world who haven't got the means to be able to get their ideas off the ground. And I think it's time we start using our creativity for good because, one, things like Brexit happen, things like Trump happen. But two, if we leave behind everyone, who's going to buy the shit we're selling? So I think the most important thing to walk away with is doing stuff that has meaning and doing stuff that will make the world a better place is also going to excitingly bring you joy. So this is a Japanese philosophy called ikigai. I'm dyslexic. This is really hell. But it shows, it basically is the philosophy around happiness and your career happiness. And what this is showing is if you combine what you love doing with what you're good at, with what you get paid for, but also the most important circle, what the world needs, that's when true happiness in a career happens. It's that amazing intersection where you're getting paid to do something you're good at, that brings you joy, but is also making the world a better place. And I am so blessed every day that I have found that bit. You know, running a tech business is hard. There's lots of highs and lows. But for me, knowing that we are not only enabling a creative community, but we're helping change diversity in the UK on a mass scale, gives me untold happiness every day. And I think everyone who wants to be happy in their career needs to find their ikigai. Thanks.
Thank you very much.